All right, Los Angeles, what's going on? Happy Saturday, a college football Saturday. We'll see how this goes. You can see I have a second co-host with me today, hence why we're a little late. Supposed to be live 10 minutes ago, but you know, life happens, dad life. But first of all, my real co-host, Stephen Haglund, the great Stephen Haglund. What's going on, man?
I'm
Me a
doing
lot of that
good.
all show.
Mia wants the mic, man. She wants to give her hot takes about LA football. So I'm doing great. Ryan and I were just kind of talking off air about how excited we are that college football is back. Waking up and being able to watch, college game day with fans and all these games, and just really excited that football is back and back to normal. Obviously, really excited about my Utes, which we can get into if you want. But it's been a good weekend, good week for me, and happy to be here.
Yeah, man, it's great. Football is back, and yeah, we are a little late because my daughter usually goes to sleep for her nap around 10:30. So we're like, oh, it's a perfect time to do this. And of course, today she could not stay up past 9:30, which I knew was going to be a bad situation. And here we are. So we're gonna try to power through this, get some good football talk, hopefully without a ton of
Yeah.
distractions. But there's gonna be a lot of it. So, but anyway, happy to be with you, brother. Happy to be talking on a Saturday. We're gonna talk, yeah, a little college football. Bruins and Trojans both played today. I'll be at the Bruins game actually here later tonight at the Rose Bowl, which I am pumped for. And then and yeah, we'll end with some Rams and Chargers talk like always. So, but first of all, how was that Utah game? How was it watching your boys play again finally after a year?
Oh, it was so good, man. Just like seeing everybody back. Utah obviously had, they upgraded their stadium, so they added about 6,000 seats. So we got to see Rice Eccles Stadium, bumping it and really rocking, which was great. They also honored the late Ty Jordan a couple times, which was really fun to see. A big tragedy last Christmas, but it was fun, man. It wasn't a super clean game. They ended up, winning pretty easily, but had some first game issues, and thankfully those issues came against Weber State and not, like the Big Ten is doing all these conference games, and like you're seeing all the Wisconsin issues right now, with handoffs and special teams play, and so thankfully Utah just played Weber State. They didn't have a big game, but it was a great to be back, and I wish I could have been there. This is the one of the few times I've missed the season opener in my life, and so it was kind of weird.
Really?
But yeah, it was a great time being back, because we went back for the 2019 season opener. It was a weekend, so we
Oh,
flew
okay.
up and we went to that one against BYU. So that was kind of a special game to open against. But
I remember that game.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, we're not able to make the trip up because it was a Thursday night. Brooke and I both work at a school, so had to be at work yesterday.
Yeah, it was a school night for you.
Yeah.
So, do you guys have your? See, I try to follow the Pac-12 as close as possible, but I feel like college football is not one that gives you a ton of info in the offseason, at least when it comes to depth charts. Is your
Yeah.
quarterback situation all you guys know who you have, or is it like last year where it's like kind of back and forth?
Yeah, so college football in general is kind of like hush hush, but Kyle Whittingham too is like he gives no secrets.
Dude,
Like
silent.
they had 3 starting offensive linemen miss the game on Thursday, and like nobody knew. Like they just like started out the game like that, and everybody's like, "What happened to these players?" And then after the game, he was like, "Oh yeah, they were injured." It's like, cool, you
Yeah,
can tell us that.
good to know.
But the quarterback is Charlie Brewer, the Baylor transfer, and he looked awesome, man. And if you've been following Utah football for a while, you know that's been kind of held back by the quarterback situation outside of 2019 Tyler Huntley, of course. But Charlie Brewer looked awesome, had some great passes, dropped a couple of dimes into the bread baskets. His receivers dropped 2 touchdowns, so really the game should have been much worse than it was for Weber State, but he looked awesome, man. Very accurate, very poised, very smart decision maker, and just I'm really excited to see what he can do this year for them.
Yeah, because I mean, for me, that's going to be the deciding factor for this Pac-12 South because Utah is going to be good regardless. I mean, Kyle Whittingham's great. Your
Yeah,
defense is loaded again.
yeah,
It's going to be a way different team than we saw last year, but it's kind of like, what's the quarterback play going to be like? Because that's always been kind of their hindrance. And
yeah.
with USC and, even Arizona State and even UCLA, how good they can be, I think what it comes down to is Utah's quarterback play. But it's going to be a dogfight in this Pac-12 South, I think.
It really is, and we can definitely dive into that. But Charlie Brewer, I think he just gives them the kind of quarterback that they haven't really had since Brian Johnson when they were in the Mountain West and won the
Yeah.
Sugar Bowl and stuff like that. and just in terms of him being such an accurate passer. And we've really seen Kyle Whittingham kind of evolve over the last few years as it pertains to the offense, because he brought Andy Ludwig back.
Mm-hmm.
Andy, of course, was in the SEC, so they do a lot of pro style stuff. Before Ludwig got there, it was a lot of like RPOs and shotgun. Like I think in 2017 when Tyler Huntley was a freshman, I think I can recall like on one hand the amount of times that Tyler Huntley went under center.
Yeah.
And in 2019, like that was one of the things that really unlocked his play and their team's play, is because they really went to like pro style play action stuff. Of course, you had to pay a ton of attention to Zach Moss, and then that allowed Tyler Huntley to really like take all the pressure off of him, and he was able to grow as a passer, and ultimately showed enough to get onto an NFL roster. So it was really funny. Like the first drive that they had, it didn't end well. Like it ended in, like I said, the drop touchdown, but the first 6 plays were passes. And for Kyle Whittingham to like sit there and let Andy Ludwig just like really evolve this offense really kind of shows you how Whittingham has grown over the last few years. And Andy Ludwig I think he's a really good offensive coordinator, and the pairing with him and Charlie Brewer is going to be a lot of fun to watch, because I think that really fits the kind of style that Ludwig wants to play at quarterback, because Utah traditionally has a dual threat guy, and that's just not Brewer's game. He's kind of that point guard kind of style where he's just wheeling and dealing as opposed to like running and making plays with his athleticism.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah, because this could be obviously a very good team, and it's always fun to see how they do in the Pac-12 South and the dominance that they do, because they're always under the radar. It seems like they're ranked like every year, but no one talks about them. I mean, I'm sure you're used to that. So, are you going to the Utah SC game?
We're trying to. My wife is a class advisor this year, and so her school right now has homecoming dance scheduled for the same night.
Of course.
But of course, all the COVID and stuff, we're not really sure if that's going to be allowed.
Okay.
So if COVID gets the dance canceled, we will be there. If not, we'll have to go to another game. We are going to make the trip up to see them play against Stanford in November. Which will be fun. And tickets to that game are like $20. So
there you go.
Much cheaper game experience. But yeah, we'll get to some games, and then we're going to be in Utah for Thanksgiving. So we'll see them play Colorado to end the season.
That's cool. I do want to make it out to a game there. Beautiful stadium, beautiful scenery. So one day,
so nice.
I'll have to go. I mean, I don't know if I can do things. Well, maybe I'll try to make that trip, that Colorado game. That could be fun. I don't know. We'll plan it out. We'll see. See if we can make it happen. But no, it's funny you mentioned that, Kyle Whittingham keeping stuff close to the vest and doesn't give you anything, because Chip Kelly is like the same way. Like literally last year, I remember and last year was so weird with all the COVID news anyway. Like no teams were really giving much, but my buddy is like works at UCLA, and he like texted me the morning of a game. By the way, DTR didn't travel with the team, so look for a different quarterback to start. No news from anywhere, and then literally like as they're doing like pregame warm-ups, like, oh yeah, DTR out with COVID tracing, blah blah. It's like we're finding this out literally like 5 minutes before kickoff.
It really is so annoying, because like you don't gain anything from withholding that information.
Yeah.
And then the poor broadcasters, like, you're expecting, to have this whole, game plan around DTR or whoever is playing. And it's like, now you have to make, all these adjustments, and your preparation is all out the window, and it makes for a lesser product. Like it really does, because the broadcasters don't have as much preparation done. So
yeah, like they literally had to talk about, it was Chase Griffin, who was the former like Gatorade Player of the Year in Texas, and they literally just had to bring that up like 100,000 times, because they're like, we don't have anything else on this kid. Let's just talk about he was the Gatorade Player of the Year in high school.
Yeah, and it like in Utah's case, like I mentioned, the 3 linemen that were out, so it was both guards and their right tackle were out. And Weber State, Weber State's head coach is a Kyle Whittingham disciple. And so they run a lot of the same stuff. And Utah is very well known for their complex blitzes, and they do a lot of onslaught games. It makes things hard for offensive linemen. And so Weber State brings the same thing. And so they hit Charlie Brewer like a few times. And everybody's like, man, the offensive line stinks. And it's like, well, they're down 3 starters. Like, this is going to happen against anybody. And of course you want to see them play well, but it wasn't until after the game where everybody was like, oh, okay. Like we'll wait and see on the offensive line. It's like, yeah, like they're down 3 starters. That's a lot of reps for practices that they miss and things like that, communications that they missed. And so, It's just like it's definitely one of my pet peeves. The other thing that Whittingham does, if someone gets injured, he doesn't say how long or extensive the injury is unless it's season ending.
Yeah.
So like if someone has a
Yeah.
hamstring issue and misses 3 games, it's just like he's injured for, indefinitely.
Yeah.
And then he could come back like 2 weeks later and you're like, I thought he was out indefinitely. Like, what is this?
Yeah. It's like hockey injuries. That's how hockey is. It's so frustrating. Lower body injury out indefinitely. Like, okay, we have
Right.
no idea what that means. Well, we'll get to the USC and UCLA game, but first I want to ask, so games are going on right now, a few good ones.
Yeah.
But what's the game today, unless it's happening right now, that you're like most looking forward to watching? Is it one of the LA teams, or what's the game specifically today that you're like just pumped to be watching?
Oh, it has to be Clemson and Georgia because I think
Yeah.
like we're all so sick of the same teams making it to the playoff every single year. And I think Georgia has a legitimate shot to beat Clemson today. Everything we've heard is that Clemson's kind of weaker in terms of like skill players this year on both sides of the ball. And you guys know JT Daniels well. I think Daniels is probably the quarterback that I would pick to have kind of like that Joe Burrow ascent for like NFL draft pick wise, because I think he's just really, in terms of his arm, he's got everything NFL teams are looking for. So I think Daniels, and having a full offseason as the guy and, all the reps with the starters, I think it's going to, pay dividends for him. So I think Georgia and Clemson is going to be, a really great game. And I think Georgia has a great chance to win. But I am very curious about, the UCLA and LSU game, because on paper, you're like, oh, it's LSU. Like they should destroy UCLA. But I think there's a lot of like uncertainty around like Hurricane Ida and like traveling west. And so this is definitely a kind of like a trap game for LSU, and UCLA could certainly pull off the upset, but DTR has to be in his wheelhouse. Like he cannot play like he did last week against Hawaii, or UCLA is going to be in trouble.
Yeah, no, absolutely, which I am going to get to. But yeah, speaking of the Clemson Georgia game, I love it that it's literally like modern day versus St. John Bosco with the quarterbacks. You have JT Daniels from modern day and DJ Ugawala. I think I always say that wrong, but yeah, I said that way wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just go with DJ from Bosco. So it's, I love that it's still a SoCal product out there in the SEC versus ACC matchup. But that'll be a good one. I mean, anytime you get a, what is it, 3-5 or 2-5?
2-5.
Two top 5 teams in the first week. That's always exciting. But I don't think it'll be like, if it's a close game, I think both teams will still have a shot at the playoff, depending how the rest of their seasons go, because it is the first game. But if it's a blowout one way, maybe that speaks dividends, but we'll see. That'll be, what is that, 12:30 kickoff, I think? Oh no, that's the night game. It's the night game, right?
That's the night game. Yeah. And I would be more excited for Miami and Alabama if De'Aaron King were healthy, but he tore his ACL like last November, so I don't know how like limited or healthy he is, and
especially that's so important to his game, his mobility.
Yeah. But I kind of hate Miami, but so it'll be fun to see them get the trash kicked out of them, but
get boathoused by Alabama. Most likely going to happen. So both the night games of that, and then the LSU UCLA. But let's start with the SC game. And we won't go too depth because I know you're obviously a Utah guy, but this is to me, playing San Jose State at home should be a pretty good crowd, even with a lesser opponent. But this is a game for me that I think USC needs to come out and make a statement. Like they need to come out. I think it's going to be close in the beginning. San Jose State can definitely get after the passer. They have a good pass rush. They have a good offense. I know they played Southern Utah last week, but still, you put up 45 points and we're moving the ball well. So I think this game could be close through a quarter or two. Me and Frost were talking yesterday that, I think people might get concerned when at the end of the first quarter, if it's like 10-7 or 7-3. But in that second half, I want to see USC just like step on the throttle, and they should win this game by 20 plus points. I think easy.
Yeah, that's the thing is like you're expecting USC to win big, and they should, but San Jose State has some sneaky good players. If I remember correctly, their quarterback is pretty good too. So, I mean, you never really know. Again, like Utah kind of had some first game struggles too. Wisconsin is having them right now. Stanford has looked really sloppy in the first game. So you never know, like those first game mistakes pop up, and you hope that your team is good enough to kind of overcome those and win big. That's what Utah was able to do. We'll see about these other teams today. But, the question is going to be like, what happens if USC fumbles early and San Jose gets an early touchdown kind of thing? Like, what does that do for their energy? And like, I think what happened last year for USC cannot happen again this year, where they essentially just like would flip a switch in the fourth quarter, and then they would like, okay, now we can go, score some points.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they've got to flip that switch this year early and get out to some early leads. And I think if they're able to do that, that obviously suits them well because their pass rush is insane.
Yeah.
With Drake
Oh,
Jackson and all those guys. So get out to an early lead, let Drake Jackson and all those guys feast on the quarterback, especially against a team like San Jose State. Like ideally you start 14-0, Drake Jackson gets going, gets a couple sacks, gets maybe a strip sack,
yeah.
and just really be clean from start to finish. And that's the hope for every team, right? But especially when you're playing a team like San Jose State, like you want a clean game, get out early, play some backups, get some backup reps in there in the fourth quarter, and mostly stay healthy. So I agree. I think USC needs to get out early, start out hot, get Keaton Slovis. I almost said Keaton Clovis because that's where I live.
That's where you live. Yeah. There you go. Clovis season, baby.
I know. But Keaton Slovis got to get out to a hot start too and just get some momentum going for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's the MO of the season is getting off early because it was so frustrating last year just how much they struggled early on, and then they'd win it big or not win it big, but they'd come back and play when it mattered. But most of the country didn't think they were real because of that saying. They're like, well, they can't play 4 quarters; they just get lucky at the end. So I want to see them from the very get go. And something a lot of people might not know about SC that, especially if you don't follow the team, but I know they run this obviously hybrid air raid offense with Graham Harrell. But they really want to run the ball. It's a different kind of run. It's not an Alabama smash mouth run, but they want to run the ball. Clay Helton has said many times in press conferences, their sweet spot is 170 yards per game on the ground, which obviously that's a pretty lofty goal.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, you need to get off to an early lead, get off to a hot start. So then you can just feed Vivek Malapai and all these guys in the backfield. And like you said, let the pass rush get after it. So getting off early and being able to run the ball is something I'm looking for in this game, and they can build off that as they go into their week 2 matchup next week with Stanford, I believe.
Yeah, so this is a big couple of weeks for the Pac-12 in general, right? Like Stanford's playing, Kansas State right now, and unfortunately they have not been playing very well. Then next week, obviously, Oregon travels to Ohio State, and we'll see how that goes. I'm obviously kind of expecting a loss there, but
yeah,
this is a big couple of weeks for the Pac-12, right? This is a big couple of weeks for the Pac-12, and the conference needs USC to be great. They need Oregon to be great. Like they need them to be the flag bearers. And so, like I'm looking at USC's schedule right now. They have San Jose State, Stanford, Washington State, Oregon State, Colorado as their first 5 games. Like USC needs to be 5-0 and be dominating. And then you have the matchup with Utah on October 9th. And like the conference needs that to be like a top 15 matchup. And I think it will be, but like Utah and USC need to take care of business, and they need to have that game bring as many eyeballs to the conference as possible. And, it starts today with USC. You got to get out hot, take care of business. And like I said, let your stars shine and be able to show off to the rest of the country that, hey, like we're for real this year. We're not the same team as last year. That's going to, keep everything close and then win in a shootout. Like we're going to dominate from the stretch or from the open stretch.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. And, speaking of Slovis, before we move on to the UCLA game, we've talked a little bit, just in the group chat and stuff in LAFB. And obviously we're both draft guys and love, talking about the draft, which is so far away. Do you think Slovis can be a first round quarterback, or are you not a huge Slovis guy? Because I know some people there's very mixed on him. There's some love for him because of the accuracy. He is a very smart, cerebral quarterback, but doesn't have the greatest arm talent. He's not the greatest athlete. A lot of people say he's built up by this system, by this air raid system. What's your thoughts on Slovis, and if you think he can be at the next level?
I'm not a huge Slovis guy. Like I'm not the kind of person that is willing to spend, a first round pick on somebody who has all of those limitations. I think that he certainly could be like a back end first round quarterback. We saw Mac Jones, similar kind of issues in terms of like arm talent and athleticism be a first round pick. But in general, like I think that if you're spending a first round pick on a quarterback, like you're hoping that he is able to be a star. Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks always use the phrase of like trucks versus trailers. Like you're wanting somebody who can be a truck and carry the team and not have to be reliant on the team to, be successful. And so I think he could be a Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr type of quarterback and be successful in the NFL. I just don't think that's worthy of a first round pick, and neither of those guys are first round picks. So to me, it's going to be very interesting to watch because this quarterback class in general is taking a lot of heat. You know, Sam Howell did not play great on Friday.
Yeah, it did not look very good.
Spencer Rattler has already thrown 2 interceptions today, or should have thrown 2 interceptions, I should say. So the league needs somebody to like take a leap. Like, to me, the one with the most upside is Malik Willis from Liberty because he's got all the physical tools. He just is not the most accurate passer. So he's kind of like that Trey Lance kind of player where he needs a lot of work as a passer, but I think right now he has the highest ceiling. So I think there's a lot of like, you know, Slovis, JT Daniels, Spencer Rattler, I think are in that same kind of tier where I'm not expecting them to be stars, but I do think that they can carve out, you know, successful careers. Sam Howell as well, as kind of like that game manager type of quarterback.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, I like Slovis a lot, and I think this year will be very telling though to see how he can compete this year. And if he can lead USC to like a playoff and puts up 70% completion percentage again, then maybe it's a different conversation. But based on his little bit of a regression last year, we'll need to see more from him to get into that first round hype, I think. And JT Daniels, a guy that actual physical tools can absolutely be a first round pick, but there's the injury concerns. There's, you know, he ended up playing the back half of the season last year. Now he gets the full season. So, but he's an interesting guy to watch playing in the SEC that could end up a guy that's really not talked about a ton and could end up being that like darling, the Joe Burrow, like you mentioned earlier in the show. Because every year there's a guy that comes out of nowhere. I mean, even this year it was what now draft season seems so long ago, even though it was 4 months ago. But who was it this year that kind of came out of nowhere?
Well, Zach Wilson kind of did that.
There you go. Zach
Jones did too.
Yeah, Zach Wilson and Mac Jones. So every year it seems like that. But
we're not going to talk about that BYU guy.
Yeah, we'll move on. We'll move on. We'll stick with quarterbacks actually because.
But just real quick, there is some love out there for Carson Strong, the Nevada quarterback, and they play Cal today, and that's an interesting one because Cal, for all their limitations on offense, they're usually a very, very strong defensive team that kind of makes things difficult on quarterbacks. So, you know, Carson Strong could kind of really, you know, start that hype train today by playing well at Cal. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on. I think that's like at 5 or something like that. ESPN2, if I'm remembering correctly.
I think
Carson Strong's
right.
an interesting one.
That is that's a good call. So anyone out there that wants to follow which quarterbacks, just follow Stephen I. Haglin on Twitter and he'll set you straight. Right. So we'll be doing more draft stuff this year too, which is gonna be fun. Sticking with quarterbacks and going into our next game, because a guy that I've talked about a lot this offseason is DTR and about if he can put it together, which we've been saying for 3 years now. Right. If this guy can put it together, he has the talent to be one of the top premier quarterbacks in the entire NCAA, entire country. That's why he was so highly recruited. And it was such a win when at the time it was Jim Mora still, when UCLA got this kid out of Vegas, because it was like, wow, the next Josh Rosen, even though they play it very differently, but it's like we get the 5-star recruit Josh Rosen. Now we get DTR to supplant him and take over. It just hasn't happened. It's all above the shoulders. It's all mental, but he has the physical tools. He can be dual threat if he wants to be, if they utilize him that, which they should in a Chip Kelly system. Obviously, last week didn't go great, but I think a lot of that I talked on my show that, you know, you could tell the nerves were there because he knows the pressure's on this year. You could tell he just wasn't comfortable, which, you know, is a lame excuse. He's a 4th-year starter. Like, he shouldn't have that. But first game, we'll let it slide. Do you think he can make that leap and actually be an NFL quality quarterback? Or do you think we've seen enough where, hey, they can get through the season with him, but we've kind of, the writing's on the wall with this kid?
Well, I think it's to be determined for him because, like you said, it is all mental. Like, everything for him is just kind of the decision-making thing. And, you know, when I think of DTR, like, I look back at the 2019 season and they go into Utah and they had a really nice, solid first drive. He was playing great, ended in a field goal. And then the next one, the same thing. Like, it was a really solid drive, marched him down the field and ended in a field goal. And then the next drive, you really saw his athleticism escaped. You know, he juked Julian Blackman out of his shoes, and Julian Blackman is one of the best tacklers I've ever seen in a college football game. So, like, it was so just like up and down from that point on. Like, after on that third drive, he like rolls out, he makes somebody miss, and then he throws across his body, and it's an interception, and it's almost ran back for a touchdown. And then the next drive, they march him down the field, and then Mika Tafua gets a strip sack and runs it back for a touchdown. And then from there, it just snowballed.
And that strip sack was a classic DTR run backwards about 20 yards.
Yes.
And then get strip sacked, which is just infuriating for all UCLA fans and people that cover him.
So it really is just like a mental thing of him putting it together. And last week was like, again, not pretty. They didn't need him to do much because, it's Hawaii, frankly. Yeah. And Chardonnay had like 200 something yards rushing. So it's like, you didn't really need him.
Yeah.
But today against LSU, like I said earlier, like he has to be crisp.
Yeah.
And if he has a game where he's running back 20 yards and throwing a couple picks and has a fumble, like they're going to get smoked. They really are. Like LSU's going to come in and smoke them if he's not on his game. And that's the thing. So I'm willing to be patient for him. I think, he has all the kind of athletic tools that you want to see, but it's the decision-making thing. And if he's not going to clean that up, then he's not going to be an NFL quarterback. And so that really is kind of a wait and see thing. You're hoping that it's able to come together. I found out the other day that he was like missing practices a while ago, which definitely does not help. I think it might have been a COVID thing.
Personal reasons, which same thing. UCLA Chip Killer, they don't tell us anything. So I literally had a beat writer from LA Times on, and she's like, "Yeah, we have no idea. He was out for personal reasons. So I don't know if his family stuff or what." But
yeah. So he's just got to like put it all together. And sometimes we're able to see that, right? Like that was the thing with Zach Wilson. If anybody on here has watched Zach Wilson play when he was a freshman and sophomore, you see the glimpses of talent. You see him go to Tennessee and win in overtime. And then you watch him play against Utah. Lots of Utah love today. So I'm happy about this. But you watch him play against Utah, and he throws 2 pick sixes in a game. And so he finally cleaned up his decision-making process, and he ended up being the number 2 pick. I'm not saying DTR can get up to the number 2 kind of pick hype, but, if he plays well and cleans up his decision-making, he could absolutely be a day 2 pick. Because, again, he's got all the tools. He's got a really strong arm, and nobody can catch him in the field. Like, he's such a good athlete. But it's just everything shoulders up.
Like he had one throw against Hawaii where you're like, boom, that's it. Down the sideline. Where you're like, there it is. That's why he's great. But then he goes 0 for 7 to start the game or something. And so for me today against LSU, for UCLA to win this game, for UCLA to be great this year, in reality, it's going to go through the running game, which we saw last week just dominate with Britton Brown and Zach Charbonnet. I think this could be one of the top, which is weird to say, but one of the top offensive lines in the entire Pac-12, just because of the continuity they have. All the guys returning. Sean Ryan's going to be probably potentially a day 1 pick, but definitely a day 2 pick in the draft at left tackle. So it's going to go through the running game. But DTR needs to, I think, A, accept that and not force things. And then B, when he is called upon on 3rd and 7s or 3rd and 8s, or if the drive is stalling, to be able to make those crisp, like you said, throws, smart decisions, not force things, not say, oh, I'm going to play hero ball and throw a 40-yard triple coverage ball because I think I can make the throw. You can't. We've learned that you can't, especially against LSU as arguably the best 2 corners in college football. So for me today, it's seeing him. I want to see a high completion percentage, smart throws, take your check down if you need it, build upon it. Because if he can start stacking games, then by week 3, 4, 5, then he can start maybe taking some chances. Then we're saying, okay, here's the talent come out. But today I just want to see him play Chase Griffin. I don't know if you've watched him last year, but Chase Griffin is just safe quarterback. Didn't make mistakes. That's their backup. Didn't make mistakes. Just kind of took it easy. I want to see DTR do that today. If not, we may see Chase Griffin play today.
Yeah. And this could be a rough start for UCLA because they play LSU today, Fresno State next week, which, they should definitely beat Fresno State, but Fresno State has a good sneaky team. They have a great offense that can score a lot of points, then Stanford, then Arizona State. So this could be a rough start. And then they have, oh man, I didn't realize how tough this schedule is.
Dude, they got a brutal schedule.
So they get Arizona, both Arizona schools back to back, and then Washington, Oregon, Utah.
Yeah. At Washington, home against Oregon, I think at Utah, right?
At Utah, yeah.
Yeah, they have a brutal
schedule. That's gonna be Utah's blackout game, so it's gonna be rocking.
Yeah.
And then Colorado and Cal to close the season in between USC. Also, side note, whoever scheduled USC's schedule this year really just it's so annoying looking at their schedule because they close the season with BYU. Yeah. And I hate it when teams do that. Of course, I don't like BYU. I'm not fond of BYU, but when teams close with a non-conference game, it really just irritates me.
Yeah. I don't get it. Like, I don't get why you. I mean, I get why you do
Yeah,
it because it helps you out, but it shouldn't be allowed because
right.
there's a lot riding on that last week, or
The
should be.
last week needs to be rivalry week. Like
Yeah,
that is the glory of college football. As you get to the last Saturday of the season, you know, you've got Alabama and Auburn and Michigan and Ohio State. Like you've got these big games. Now Ohio State and Michigan play each other like in week 6. It's so stupid.
yeah, and USC and UCLA has been doing that for a while too, where they've been playing the second to last week. So I don't know if that's just a way to have a last tune-up game to sway things. I don't know, but yeah, it's way better when it's the last game of the year.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you wanted that game to everything be riding on that game, and if
Right.
not, at least it's still a rivalry game. At least it's still fun. When
Like I
UCLA is really
remember,
bad.
right. I remember in 2000, I think it was 2017, Utah, Colorado, and USC like all had a chance to win the South. Like
Mhm.
they like whoever won that Saturday like was gonna play, and so USC was playing UCLA that year. They won,
Yeah,
and then Utah and Colorado were playing each other because that is always like the last game of their season. It's rivalry week for them.
yeah. Becoming one. It's
Yeah,
becoming one.
kind of, I guess. But Colorado ended up
Forcibly.
winning. Yeah,
Yeah,
forcibly. Colorado ended up winning, and so they went to the conference title game that year. But it was like everything came down to that last week, and that's how it should be.
yeah,
That's what makes college football great is you have every single game matters. Every single game on the last weekend is like must see TV. And so I just hate it when they like Alabama's done that sometimes too, where they'll play like some FCS school the last week of the year, and it's like, what are we doing here?
yeah, yeah. I don't think they can do that anymore now that they have like 30 teams in their conference. But,
True.
yeah. So yeah, this game. So we'll wrap up this before we end with some Chargers and Rams talk. But do you think? So I'll just start. I think UCLA has a chance in this game, but I've been kind of high in this team. I think they can be a good team this year, minus the fact they have a brutal schedule. Like for them to win 8 games, I think is a good year for them with this schedule.
Absolutely.
But I think they have a shot in this game, and part of that's just because I don't really know what to expect from LSU after a down year last year. I know they're ranked in the top 25. They're LSU still. You got Coach O coming back to LA, but and I know it's Hawaii, but I look for things that aren't just on the scoreboard and the way they were, ball hawking the ball, the way the running game was working, the way the offensive line was just moving people. I know it's lesser competition, but when you see those things and they're all clicking, it means they can at least be competitive against better teams.
Right.
So I like their chances. I actually predicted an upset, and I thought if Vegas has it at 2.5 points, means they think it's going to be pretty close too.
Yeah.
But I like UCLA. I think at home with LSU having to travel, I know it'll basically be kind of a home game probably for LSU if everyone was able to make it out over here.
Yeah.
But I think they have a shot. What do you think?
I think UCLA has a shot for sure. Like I said, I think they have the talent, with the kind of running game that they have, they can certainly control the clock. I need to see it with DTR first before I'm going to predict it. So like,
Yeah.
I need to see him go out and have, a few clean games, like you said, like stack those bricks. So I'm going to pick LSU today. I just think, they have more talent, and with DTR, it's just tough to predict. And LSU corners, man, like Derek Stingley might be the best player in the country overall.
Yeah.
And there's a legitimate argument that he's barely the best cornerback on his team. So it's going to be a tough one for DTR today, I think. And I know Vegas has a close game, but if LSU ended up winning by multiple touchdowns, I wouldn't be surprised. So I'm going with LSU today.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I'll just say this to end it. I love Kyle Phillips and Chase Cota. I think they're two really, really good underrated receivers. But today, don't even target them.
It's
you want
lockdown
to.
today.
Greg Dulcich should have a monster game today. The tight end, like you're just going to Greg Dulcich in your backs all day. That's what I want to see.
Yeah. Triple option and stuff today.
Yeah, for real. Let's see some old school Chip Kelly stuff. Like we saw last week. We saw some fun stuff last week. So let's hope so. But I will be there hanging out with Corey Paz, actually, former UCLA quarterback. So it should be a good time. Should be a good time. If anyone's in here and you're going to be at the game, hit me up. But
Bruins fans, show up, man. Like this is a huge game for your team. So last week was kind of embarrassing. Actually, not kind of. It was embarrassing.
It was very embarrassing. Yeah, that's the state of the program's been in. So hopefully, luckily, Martin Jarmon, the new AD, has been. I mean, he's only been there a year and already has like made things exponentially better. So regardless of how the seasons go, I think we'll start seeing an uptick. I mean, they're selling beer and wine at the Rose Bowl now, which is, a perk for people to go, which is huge.
Yeah.
They got the new deal with Air Jordan and all that. So, I mean, they're doing things the right way. Now they just need to win. Hopefully that'll happen.
I know there's a lot of people here in Fresno that are very excited about that game in a couple of weeks and are planning to make the trip down. So if you're a UCLA fan, it's time to show up.
Yeah, there you go. I like it. So, all right, well, let's end with some NFL talk since that's what we do know best. How did we want to do this? Talk about, everyone, I feel like we've played out the whole roster cuts thing, but if you want to, we can get into some of the roster cuts or, practice squad guys, or do you want to just kind of go into how we think this first week's going to go?
I think we just move into the first week and just kind of general season stuff, because this is, it's so weird not having a preseason game tomorrow and like getting ready to see the last tune-up game.
Yeah.
So I think we just talk about week one and kind of what we're looking for overall from these teams this year.
Let's get into it. Let's start with the Chargers since they play first. Rams have the Sunday night game. So Chargers traveling to play Washington. I don't know why this bugs me, because it's probably correct, but maybe I'm way wrong here. But I feel like when they decided to, for now, the name Washington Football Team, it wasn't supposed to be like Washington and their mascot is football team. It was just like the Washington Football Team.
Yeah. Right.
So I hate it when you see graphics from Fox and ESPN and it'll be like Chargers football team. I'm like, put Washington or WFT. That drives me crazy.
It does. It was like my understanding was it was kind of like, the soccer stuff where it's like the LA Football Club or FC
LAFC.
Barcelona. Yeah. So it's like your mascot is not the football team. Your mascot is kind of non-existent right now. Side note though, my wife Brooke, she thinks she's hilarious and for the most part she is very funny, but we saw the list of names that they're thinking of doing for next year, and she thought it was so clever to name them the Pigskins, because then you keep them, you keep the skins part of Redskins, and you don't have to change that much, and then you make their mascot just like a literal football.
I like
and they're Washington Pigskins.
And their pseudo mascot is the Hogs.
Yeah.
Then you got Pigskins, pig. I like it.
So I actually thought that was one of her better ideas. And all of their potential names, like the Commanders, that's so lame.
Yeah. I think it's going to end up being Red Wolves, as weird as that is. I think that's what it's going to end up being.
I don't know. There was the rumor when it first started that they were going to be the Red Tails, as like a note to the military, and I like that idea.
Yeah, I like that too.
But Red Wolves is just kind of what even is a red wolf?
I know. I don't know if there's a deeper meaning or if it's literally just an animal, a breed of wolf. But I don't know if it's a call sign or something, but I don't mind presidents either. That makes sense. You have the Washington Capitals already. You have the Nationals, presidents. That's fine too.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I thought they should have, and we're getting way off topic, but I thought they should have just, instead of being Washington Football Team, they should have just been Washington Football Club, with soccer, and just been WFC. And that would have been they could have literally done their jerseys almost like the soccer logo thing, how they do that. You've seen them. I thought that would have been kind of cool, especially with, being the world sport. They could have gotten maybe some new fans and oh, this is kind of cool, like a soccer team.
Yeah. I think that could be a thing later on, but the NFL is so traditional right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I must say, I love their colors, the burgundy and yellow. I think just really works really well, and their uniforms are so well done.
Yeah.
So whoever, once people do decide on your team name, do not do a full rebrand like the other Los Angeles team did. Just keep it simple and work out the kinks a little bit, because I think the uniforms are awesome.
Yeah, I agree. And I remember when it first came out, they were going into the season as a Washington Football Team, and everyone's like, wow, what a joke. But the more I think about it, it was probably smarter than to take 2 years to do it right and not just rush into something.
And I feel
we'll see if they get it right though.
Right. And I feel like people are used to it now. I think everybody on TV, Red Wolves are from Pennsylvania.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Endangered species list. Okay, then I don't hate that. I think that's
Ross. Did you know that, or did you just look that up to make us look bad?
Yeah. Shout out to Ross though. That's a good find.
Are they similar to Timberwolves? Or are they way different? They're all wolves, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
anyway,
I think people are used to the name now, and so it is kind of going to be weird, if they do change it to something else, where it's it takes us 2 years to get used to not calling them the R words, and now it's going to change again. So
yeah.
But for some reason, people still say
can't
San
even,
Diego Chargers.
I was just going to say, people can't even say Los Angeles Chargers in 5 years.
I know.
But
So
everyone can say Las Vegas Raiders. I don't get it.
I know. So I started my new job this week, and I told a couple of people that I was a Chargers fan, and they're like, "Oh, like how did you become a fan of San Diego?" And I'm like, "They're in Los Angeles now. It's been 5 years. Like, let's register it now." But
it's been a long time.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, the Los Angeles Chargers traveled to Washington. Ross said he looked it up when the list came out. So okay, but he didn't look up today. So he remembered from a couple weeks ago. So thank you for that.
Look at me. Yeah,
I know she's been good actually for this 40 minutes, but she's starting to get a little crazy. So I'll let you talk first while I try to calm her down. Chargers go to Washington. What are you looking for in this game? How do you feel about it? We don't have to go in a deep dive preview, but just overall thoughts about this matchup.
Well, I think a lot of the matchup overall is going to hinge on what Ryan Fitzpatrick is able to do or not do for his team, because you never really know, right? Like with Ryan Fitzpatrick, like there was that opening weekend game, I think when he was on the Buccaneers, where they went into the Superdome, and Fitzpatrick had like 6 touchdowns and played amazing, and they ended up beating the Saints. And then like the next week against the Panthers, he was like 4 picks, couple fumbles. Like it was just kind of a mess. So you never know what you're going to get with Ryan Fitzpatrick, which obviously creates a big window of opportunity for the Chargers. But I think I'm so excited to see this offense come together, because we've seen we saw a bunch of starters play in the preseason. Like we saw Michael Davis, Asante Samuel Jr., the edge rushers minus Joey Bosa, the linebackers. Like we have, pretty much a well-rounded idea of what the defense is going to look like. But if you missed Robert Mays' article on The Athletic, go check that out, because he really did do a fantastic job of like talking about where all these influences are coming from for the Chargers offense. And I just can't wait to see it come together, because I think last year, obviously Justin Herbert had a good statistical season, but it was really frustrating. Like it was like pulling teeth getting the offense to like fit his skill set. Yeah. And so, Robert Mays in this article talks about how Kevin Koger, coming from Green Bay, has really brought like a lot of the RPO stuff back that Justin Herbert was so comfortable with at Oregon. And obviously we saw a little bit of that with Easton Stick and Chase Daniel in the preseason, but I'm really excited to see them really use Justin Herbert's legs as an advantage, because he's a great athlete. He ran like a 4.68 at the combine. Like he is a great runner. Yeah. We just didn't see that at all last year. And so I'm so excited to see what this offense looks like, because the other thing too is everybody kind of remembers the Saints as like the dink and dunk stuff from Drew Brees when he didn't have an arm. But if you go back and watch the 2010, 2011, 2009 when they won the Super Bowl, a lot of it was like Drew Brees chucking it down the field to Marcus Colston and all those guys.
I was just going to say, when they had Marcus Colston, that was their deep guy.
Yeah. So I'm just so excited to see what Joe Lombardi's vision is for this offense, how it all comes together. I know everybody was kind of upset this week about cutting Tyron Johnson, but I still firmly believe that this team can be a top 5 offense this year, and that Justin Herbert can take that big MVP leap that we're all hoping for. But we just need to see it come together. Like similar to the college football stuff, it could take a little bit. Like they could certainly have a little bit of a rough game to start this season. But I think as the season goes along, as Justin Herbert gets more and more comfortable, we're going to see a big time season from him and the offense overall. I just can't wait to see it all come together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And anyone that's still upset about all the roster cuts or anything, just watch Brandon Staley's last press conference and you'll feel much better. Dude, you just hear him talk like, all right, I trust you. Like, we're good. Yeah. He's just such a leader the way he speaks.
I know. I interviewed Jeff Miller yesterday, actually, for our Guilty as Charged show. And he was just talking about like being there in person. Like we're all watching the videos and we're like, man, this is amazing. But he's like there in person. And it's just, he used the word mesmerizing too. And it's like you're sitting here listening to essentially a coaching clinic. Every time Brandon Staley gets up, up at the podium, if he's not talking about like who's healthy and who's not, and he's just talking about like pure X's and O's and philosophies, we're all getting coaches clinics every single time he talks. And that's really what it felt like this week too.
Imagine being able to cover the Rams last year and having Sean McVay and Brandon Staley on the same coaching staff. Like it was such a joy to see both of them. And that's why I was so amped on Brandon Staley before he was Chargers coach. I'm like, dude, this guy is special. And you just see them two together and you're like, man, you wish this could last longer, because I think they were building something great, but worked out for the Chargers and the better. But Specifically about this game, and you kind of alluded to it too, but what I'm most looking for, or most watching, also looking forward to, and what everyone I'm sure is this offensive line against arguably the best front in football, at least defensively. And the Chase Young and Rashawn Slater matchup again that everyone talks about from college and all that. So that's going to be really interesting to see how this, because we haven't, I know everyone's been concerned about the O-line, but we've never seen all five play together, which is so important. You can't just throw 2 starters and 3 backups and expect to get the same result. So I'm excited to see how this 5 guys look together. There's going to be some growing pains. There's going to be, I'm sure, some miscues. But if they can overall just look better than last year, playing against one of the best defensive fronts in football, that's even win or loss for the game. That's going to be a win for moving forward for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things Brandon Staley talked about in one of his press conferences, because he was asked about Trey Pipkins and Storm Norton really struggling, and one of the things he said is that we wanted to see them on an island. We didn't want to help them. And in a normal game, you'll chip a defensive end, you'll do some more rollouts. You can do all these things to help mitigate a poor offensive line. And everybody's been very frustrated about the offensive line in the preseason. But like you said, we haven't seen Corey Lindsey play. We haven't seen Brian Bulaga play. We didn't get to see Rashawn Slater play all that much outside of the first drive against the Rams. Like, who we watched all preseason is not going to be playing in this game. So I think the Chargers, like I've talked about and written about, I think the Chargers can have a top 15 offensive line. I think if Brian Bulaga can stay relatively healthy, I think they could move even higher. But that's obviously a big question mark. But the one thing I love from Brandon Staley this week, outside of talking about the philosophy, is that he was talking about Corey Linsley, and he said that Corey Linsley is a power source for their offense. And it's just like we all talked about it when they signed him, but it's kind of like died down a little bit. But Corey Linsley is going to be so important for the Chargers, and specifically for Justin Herbert, because Corey Linsley is going to handle all of the protection issues. Like, he is going to be a huge upgrade, both on the field, but also in the communication department, which is where this matchup comes together, because you have Chase Young, but then you have Jonathan Allen, and then you have, I forget his first name, but Leonidas. Like, you have some really good pass rushing.
Yeah. Isn't Deron Payne still there too?
Deron Payne. Thank you. Crazy. So they have some really good defensive tackles. And one of the biggest things the Chargers struggled with last year was just like basic stunts from the middle. And that's all communication. It's all communication. And so Corey Linsley, Matt Filer, and Ode Ibushi, like, that's not going to be an issue, I think, this year. So I think we could see Chase Young have a little bit. Like, he's so good.
Yeah.
But
sometimes just the better man will win.
Yeah.
You can't stop it.
Right. So I think the offensive line will play well. And I think with how many veteran players they have, they're not going to get out to as slow of a start as people are expecting. But like, we are going to see Chase Young get his. Like, he's just that kind of dude.
Yeah, exactly. So that people shouldn't freak out if that happens. Like, breathe. It'll be okay. If it happens like 7 times in the game, maybe, okay, it's a different story.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I'm just excited. I cannot wait to watch this team all play together. I haven't covered the Chargers that long. You've obviously been a fan for a long time, but I can't remember a time when this much hype has sent around a team before the season starts.
No. And what's great about the hype too, I don't know if you saw the tweet, but the Chargers are currently the healthiest team in the league. They don't have a single player on injured reserve, like, for the first time that I can remember heading
coaching, baby.
Season.
Yeah.
I know. So it's just so exciting, man. Like, there's so much hype around this team. And I honestly, like, I think they have everything it takes to make the playoffs this year, potentially win a game. And then next year they'll have $65-70 million in cap space. And I think they'll make that leap next year. I really do. Like, I feel so confident in where this team is heading. And like, initially when the schedule came out, I was like, oh, they're playing at Washington. Like, offensive line is going to be an issue. Like, that's going to be a loss. But I've really kind of switched my tune as preseason has come along, specifically as we've heard, like, Rashawn Slater looks amazing, and Matt Filer has really kind of exceeded my expectations, and I was pretty excited about that signing as well.
Yeah.
So as long as Brian Bulaga can play and we don't have to see Storm Norton or Trey Pipkins out there, I think the Chargers can win week 1 at Washington.
I think so too. So, and that injury stat was, what a breath of fresh air to see.
I know.
it shows, man, that yeah, there's absolutely some bad luck that happens with injury, but there is absolutely mitigation and coaching stuff that you do, and guys you sign. Like, don't sign and draft injury riddled guys with history.
Yeah.
But and that's why I've always talked about the Niners too, which Kyle Shanahan, like, somehow he gets a pass always because injuries. It's like, well, some of that's like your coaching practices, your practices, how you run things, who you go after in free agency. And that has been what's plagued the Chargers. And now, sometimes you catch good luck. That's absolutely true. But sometimes it is how you utilize guys in practice, your workout programs and stuff like that. And we're seeing it all come together. And we talked a lot about that in the offseason, how different we'd see this coaching staff use guys, because they're going to take kind of the Rams model where they never start anybody because they want them to play in the regular season, not in preseason.
Yeah. Someone pointed this out to me. Apparently Keenan Allen said in an interview with one of the Fox network, one of the Fox shows, that the last 4 years they didn't have like a team warm-up session. Like each player would just show up and like do their thing. And
like
now you see now you see under Brandon Staley, Peter King called it yoga. I don't think necessarily yoga, they call it the activation period. But that makes a huge difference, like warming up your body, as well as, doing some cool down stuff. Like, we all know how much that matters now. And I think that's a huge thing that Brandon Staley has brought to the table this year. And listen, like the Rams, for like how good they've been, I think the worst that they've had in terms of injuries was like 10th in games lost under Sean McVay.
Yeah.
So staying healthy is like the thing for every team, and especially the Chargers, which is always the case. But, I think this year, if you can keep Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, Corey Linsley, Joey Bosa, Derwin James, like the core 5 players healthy, the Chargers can have, a great season. It's just that their core players are never really able to stay healthy. And if they're able to do that this year, I think they'll be set.
Exactly. So, and that's, I've said so many time and time again, all NFL teams are talented. Yes, there's definitely some that are worse than others, 100%. I'm not saying everyone's equal, but when you look at who makes the playoffs, show me a team that has had a bunch of injuries throughout the season. Almost every single one is at least 90% healthy, especially with the core guys, like you said. And that's why they're in the playoffs. You don't have, just because they're head and shoulders above better. Yes, they obviously have some better players, some more star talent than some of the bottom teams. But from team 1 to team 20, it's a lot closer than people think. It's just who stays healthier.
Yeah.
And so with that, let's get on into this Rams team that we'll wrap up with. They play the Sunday night game at SoFi, first regular season game at SoFi with fans, as they host the Bears, who at least for a half will play Andy Dalton as their starter, as Rams fans are just so excited about. Could not be more thrilled to face the Red Rifle in this week 1 matchup, at least for the first half. So I'm excited about this game. This is like, I feel like the 4th time the Rams have played the Bears in 4 years. Somehow they play them every single year, and they are 2-1. So going for their 3rd, I think they lost the first one and they've won 2 straight now. So going for their 3rd straight win over Chicago. And I like their chances in this one. Biggest thing with the Rams, and I'll turn over to you. And again, we don't have to get too in depth, but this Rams team, there's so much hype about, so much excitement about what they're going to do. But it's always hard, at least in these first few games, to predict because we don't see anybody in preseason. We don't see anyone really even in like practice, just because they, rotate out. We have a brand new quarterback in Matthew Stafford, but Sean McVay is like in his first 4 games has like an unbelievable winning record since being with the Rams. It's like, I think he has like 3 losses in his first 4 games in his first 4 seasons. So odds are good that they're going to go out and win this game just based on statistics.
Yeah. Like the biggest thing that Sean McVay, that it always amazes me, is his record when he has a lead in halftime, like going into halftime.
Don't bring that up to him though.
I know, but then you like sit down and like you realize who's on the roster, and you're like, okay, it makes sense that when you have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, that you're really good with a lead.
Yeah,
and that's going to happen this game. Like the Bears' offensive line, we just talked about injuries for the Chargers. The Bears' offensive line, they don't have Tevin Jenkins, who was going to be their starting left tackle. The right tackle, Jermaine Ifedi, just barely came off the PUP list like literally 4 days ago. So they had to go out and sign Jason Peters, who's like 37 years old. And their offensive line is not good. Like, it's just not good. It wasn't going to be good, and now they're dealing with injuries. So the defensive line for the Rams is going to feast on Andy Dalton this week. And Justin Fields should be starting. Like, it needs to happen. But I kind of understand, like, not throwing him to the wolves in his first game against, arguably one of the best defensive line groups in the league. So
Yeah.
it's going to be not very pretty for the Bears, unfortunately, for that whole team in that city. But like, I do think the Rams, they have such a high ceiling this year because of Matt Stafford. Like, I think people are really going to realize how bad Jared Goff was now that he's in Detroit and doesn't have Sean McVay. And you're going to see how good Matthew Stafford is because he's not in Detroit and because he now has Sean McVay.
Yeah.
So one of the things we talked about, just me and you texting a couple weeks ago, was that Matthew Stafford from like 2016 to 2019 was like 27th or something in air yards in Detroit.
Yeah.
Just because they didn't have the talent to really like air it out the way that they used to. And now he has the talent. And so I'm a big believer in like the moves that teams make tell you what they want to do. And the Rams went out and traded for Matthew Stafford. They signed Deshaun Jackson and they drafted Tutu Atwell. So what does that tell me? Yeah. They want to throw that freaking ball down the field, and they want to throw it down the field all the time. So they're going to be fun to watch, as much as I hate to say it. Like, Stafford there is going to be just, really, what's the phrase? Breath of fresh air. There we go.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. They're definitely not hiding what they want to do.
No,
they're not hiding what this offense wants to accomplish. And, you mentioned, not throwing Justin Fields to the Wolves, and I don't want to come out here and say this is why he had a bad rookie season, but if everyone remembers, Tua Tagovailoa's first start was against these Rams, and the story of that game was the Dolphins dominating the Rams, Jared Goff's 4 turnovers, how good the Dolphins defense looked.
Right.
For those who don't remember, Tua looked awful. I mean, yes, it was his rookie debut, but his first snap was like a sack fumble. He had another sack fumble, I think a pick. Like, he had like 80 total yards in the game. Just never looked comfortable. And then, went on to have a pretty porous rookie year. Again, I'm not saying it's because of the Rams, but you don't want your first start to go against 2 of the best defensive guys of the entire league in any chance to, hurt any legitimacy for down the line. So I don't know if that went into their thinking. I'm sure coaches don't think that way because they just want to win every game, but it's something worth at least noting or talking about. But should be a fun game. I'm just really excited to see this offense because let me refocus this camera. There we go. We can finally see all of them play together. The big thing is going to be this offensive line, like how Brian Allen plays as the starting center now. Hang on, Mia. We're almost there. We're almost done, Mia. Yeah. We're going to 57 minutes here. I'm impressed.
Great. She's being a champ.
Yeah. So, how Brian Allen does as the starting center. Austin Corbett obviously moving back to guard, but just how this line looks in cohesion. And in the running game, does Sony Michel play a lot, the newly traded for guy? All right. I don't know how much more we're going to get through, huh? Oh, my. But how Sony Michel is going to look. Obviously, Darrell Henderson's the guy, but they don't want to, even though Sean McVay gushes over Darrell Henderson, they don't want him running the ball 20-plus times. Like, that's just not what he's built for.
Game, yeah.
He needs to run the ball 12 to 15 times, get a few touches out of the backfield in the passing game, but they need to have some complementary guys, and that's why they brought Sony Michel in and traded for him and not waited for him to hit waivers like many thought he would. So I'm interested to see this running game and how it is successful against, a Bears still have a very formidable defense. So see how they do with that, which will be fun to watch.
Yeah, Darrell Henderson is kind of like an Austin Eckler light. Like, you don't want to overload him with carries. You want to give him some touches as a receiver, but he's not your typical workhorse. So that's going to be interesting to watch. And the Rams do have like a very manageable schedule. It's opposite of the Chargers, where the Chargers have a difficult schedule to open up. But they have the Bears, the Colts, who are a mess right now. Yeah. And half their team is anti-vaxxer, which I don't want to get into, but then they play the Buccaneers. That's okay. Then Cardinals, Seahawks, Giants, Lions, Texans. Like, that's a solid, pretty manageable start to the schedule.
Midway through the season, they should be like no more than 2 losses.
Right. Like, they could definitely be 6-2 heading into the second half of the schedule. And that's what you want, right? Like, you want to have momentum going into the second half of the schedule. Whereas with the Chargers, I feel like if they're like 3-3 or better after the first 6 games, then that's a huge win. So the Rams could definitely build some momentum, win a lot of games. The NFC is wide open. Like, outside of the Buccaneers, everything's kind of just, up for grabs at this point. And it could certainly be the Rams. I'm a little worried, like you said, about Cam Akers and what that does for the kind of lack of balance. But, if anybody can work around issues like that, it is Sean McVay.
Yeah, I think so. And the way they utilize the running game, I just hope they don't abandon it like they did last
Right.
year so often. But at
Right.
least you have a quarterback now that if you do, he can do a little bit more than what Jared
Yeah.
Goff did.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's going to be interesting with the schedule and how they go. And it's funny because you said the NFC is wide open. It's literally the Bucks and the NFC West. That's kind of like
It
the
really does
dominant
feel like
teams.
that.
Yeah, which is unfortunate for the Rams. It's all in their
Yeah.
division. But if they can get through that division, then I love their odds in the playoffs. So, and that's what you want. You want to prove, you want to win your division, then you want to, get a bye, and then you want to go to the Super Bowl. So if they can win their division in that gauntlet, I think it'll bode well for them heading into the playoffs. But we're getting, way ahead of ourselves. We got 17 games to play. But I definitely like the Rams winning week 1 against Chicago, though, for sure.
Oh yeah, that's one of the locks. Like if you're a betting person, bet on the Rams to win week 1 because that's a lock. I don't trust. They cut Daz Newsome this week, and they need receivers. They need playmakers.
Yeah.
So I don't trust their offense.
Surprising cut.
Yeah, it was. I don't trust their offense. Their defense, they'll be solid. I feel like they'll miss, a guy like Kyle Fuller as much as I like my guy Jalen Johnson up there. But I just don't trust their offense enough to, make them legitimate. And, it's going to be a tough start. And Andy Dalton, frankly, is like not a good quarterback anymore. Yeah. So
good
it's going to
backup.
be right. He's a solid backup, but he's not a starter.
Yeah.
So I expect the Rams to win by like 10, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. Bet the spread. I think you'll be good there. I don't even know what I'm sure it's like 7.5 or something for the Rams. Yeah, go to betonline.ag and or you guys have a new bet sponsor too, don't you?
Yeah, we're with Busser Sports. It's a newer company, so like I've talked to people who are into betting, and they're like, oh, I've never heard of them, and it's like, okay, well they're kind of new, but it's fun. So our deal with them is you bet $100, you get 100% bonus as well. So they'll match anything over $100.
There you go. I love that. And yeah, bet online. If you sign up, you get 100% match of what you enter. So either one of those, go use. Bet the Rams. Chargers is a little closer. I don't know if I'm willing to bet on the Chargers. I might just take my money out of that game and just enjoy it. But Rams, I'm hammering. I'm hammering the Rams.
Let's see what the odds are this week. I don't even know.
Yeah, I'm curious. While you're looking that up, I have in my living room, I have the TV on with the Penn State Wisconsin game. Is it like on a huge break? It's just like playing techno music I can hear in the background. Or maybe my TV somehow changed. I don't know.
Well, my wife is downstairs watching the Oregon game, and Kayvon Thibodeau had a strip sack on the first play or the first series, and then Noah Sewell had a forced fumble on the next series. So
apparently Thibodeau is supposed to be good. It's supposed to be a guy to watch.
Yeah. Did you hear Desmond Howard today? He's like, keep it. Remember the name Kayvon Thibodeau. It's like, no shit, Desmond. We've been talking about Kayvon Thibodeau for 3 years.
Yeah. One of the best defenders in the game right now. Probably gonna be a top 10 pick, maybe.
So right now, BetOnline has the Chargers favored by 1. So that's a tough one. They have an over under at 44.5. I'm taking the over for sure with Fitzpatrick and Herbert.
Yeah, I take the over for sure. I'm gonna guess Rams is 7.5, minus 7.5, but I haven't looked.
It's -7, so great job.
All right, there you go.
So yeah,
take the Rams.
Take the Rams and take the points.
Yeah, what's the over under on that one?
That one is also 44.5.
Oh, I'm taking the over for sure. I like both defenses, but just with what this offense is trying to do, it's scary because it's the first game, so there's gonna be some kinks. But I could see the Rams putting up a 30 spot.
Oh, BetOnline has the Chiefs favored by a whole touchdown against the Browns.
Wow. I might take the Browns in that.
Yeah.
I might take the Browns straight up. Give me the money line. It's in KC though, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. I need to go through all that before next week.
The Chargers are the only team. The Chargers in Washington are the only team that BetOnline has as a 1 point difference, 1 point spread.
Yeah. And the Chargers are a road favorite. How many times have you heard that in the last 4 years?
Not very often.
Yeah. Road favorite for the Chargers. Maybe when they played the Jets last year, and that's about it. Well, even then, they probably weren't. Oh, no, that was at SoFi, wasn't it?
That was at SoFi, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think last year, the only road game they were favored was in Vegas. I think Vegas, they were like a 1 point favorite.
Oh, okay. There you go. I was in.
Yeah.
And he was.
And
he was. So, all right. Well, let's, I guess that wraps it up. We're about the hour mark. We made it through with
shout out to Mia.
With 2 co-hosts today. Made it through. All right, Mia, you can say hi now. Hi.
Bye, Mia.
You can say bye to everyone. There you go. You're pretty good.
Good job.
Yeah, not too bad. So
Good job.
thank you everyone for bearing with me. Steven, thank you most for bearing with me and all the distractions. But hey, it was fun to get on and talk some actual college and then obviously talk about our Rams and Chargers. That was good.
Oh, yeah. Been a blast. Everybody, if you go shopping today, make sure you put your grocery carts away or Justin Herbert will get mad. Did you read that story?
I didn't actually, but I just thought that was, you were going to say, I'm like, I agree with you. It drives me crazy when that happens.
You got to read that story by Mina Kimes, man. Because him and Gabe Neighbors are roommates. And Neighbors said the only time that he's heard Justin Herbert lose his temper is when Neighbors didn't put his grocery cart back. And Justin was like, no, you go put that back.
I love it. A man of the people. Yeah. Cleaning up the city, one shopping cart at a time.
Exactly.
That should be your new like Bob Barker sign off. Like, get your pets spayed and neutered. Like, all right, remember to put your shopping carts away.
Right. That's a good one.
Yeah, but I agree 100%. So, all right, everyone, put your shopping carts away. Enjoy this week of college football. Go Trojans, excited. Fight on. Go Bruins. Hopefully we go 2-0 here in LA. And then next week we got 4 LA football games. How exciting is that?
So exciting, man. I love football season. And there really is nothing like it because you get Thursday night NFL games usually, sometimes college. Then if you're into high school football, you got Friday night. Saturday you get college football. Sunday NFL. Monday NFL. There's really nothing like football season.
No, it's so great. So great. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is all of us scrambling to put up a crap ton of content doing that. So there never ends. It never ends for fans out there.
Yeah.
Lastly, me and Steven will obviously talk off air, but we're going to figure out how we want to do this LAFB Live throughout the season. If we want to keep it Saturdays, move to Sundays, move a different day. So anyone listening that wants to give us feedback where you would prefer, what's better for all of you guys listening, would love to hear it. Because obviously that's why we do it. We don't do it just to, well, maybe we do it to hear ourselves talk and hang out, but preferably hopefully to give people some good content info. So let us know.
Yeah. Well, now on, we're just going to do it to see Mia. Mia's the star of the show.
I guess so. Yeah. We'll just make sure every time we do it, my wife's working. So I'm
there. We go.
All right, guys. Well, hey, enjoy the Saturday. Enjoy your week of no more the last week of no NFL football. And we will talk next week. We'll let everyone know what time, what day, but looking forward to it. Steven, appreciate you as always, brother. Talk soon.
Likewise.